But we're way off product design now.
No, it's fine. I said before, it doesn't matter where it goes. It's interesting. Welcome to the Swifty Podcast, inspiring positive change through design, innovation, and technology. Welcome. Today I've got a really special guest, or all our guests are special, but Peter and I have been friends for a very long time. Actually, not seen Peter for a long time. We think it might be actually a decade.
It was in a nightclub. That's what I can say.
I've not been to a nightclub for a long time. Peter Marigold is a designer. He's fabulously successful. Some of his projects I really, really love looking at what he's been doing over the years. We're going to talk about that today. But what's really exciting about having you here is you're our first guest who is an actual product designer, or I don't know if you describe yourself as a product designer, but studied product design like myself. And so, yeah, we have a lot in common, I think. Even though our paths and careers have gone in different directions. I
like to think of myself as a product designer.
Okay, great.
That's what I wanted to be when I was little.
Okay.
It just got kind of like messy along the way.
So when you were little, you knew you wanted to go into product design? Really?
100%.
Okay.
I wanted to do toothbrushes.
Okay.
And zips.
Wow.
And objects.
Okay.
Yeah, like simple products. That's what I was always into.
Wow. What do you think inspired that thought process? What was it?
Just like, I think it's that very sort of just looking at objects and just being fascinated by things you find on the floor when you're a kid.
Yeah.
You find a weird bit of metal.
Yeah.
And you start to wonder, where did that come from, and like what was it for? And it's this kind of a sort of magic of just everyday objects. When I was in Italy, my first trip to Italy with my parents, conscious first trip in Italy with my parents, my mum asked me, or my nonna asked me, my grandmother asked me, what was my favourite thing about the trip, and I said the taps. So it was always objects.
Right. Yeah. Wow. I don't think I knew what a product designer was when I was a kid. I don't even think I really knew what the word design really meant, probably, until I was way older. But I guess you didn't think product design. You were
just this
fascinated.
Feeling that, it was the object world, and sort of like the simplicity of kind of just the things in front of you, and the curiosity of things in front of you. I think I didn't know what a product designer was. Yeah. But I know now that that's what was going through my head.
I think I probably had the same feelings. I think one of the earliest memories I've got is my mum. I was at my mum and dad's house, and we had there was a joiner who was a neighbour, and he was doing a repair job on my mum's conservatory. It was like a bit rotten, it was a wooden one back in the day before UPVC, and he was like doing kind of like a patch job on taking out some of the rotten timber, and I must have been about 5 or 6, and I got into loads of trouble because he let me have some of the offcut bits of timber, and I was playing with it, and it was kind of like. And I went and got my mum's sweeping brush. Yeah. And I chopped the broom handle to make little wheels, and I made a little car.
Oh, that's so good.
And it was cool. And the guy was like, he helped me, and he like chopped the wood for me. And my mum came home. She's like, "What have you done to the brush?" And I was like, because I don't know why, but we'd cut it rather than at the end,
in the middle, taking a middle. That was the best segment. Yeah,
yeah. And but that's my earliest, I think, memory of the same inquisitiveness of, like, I took all the toys apart, like electrical toys. Yeah. Got the motors out. Played with the motors.
Same thing, yeah.
So it's similar, isn't that fascinating?
It's a sort of natural curiosity about sort of what's going on inside things, and like, someone put this together, and why did they do it like this? Why did they do it like that? I mean, it lends to a really deep question, and it's something I've been thinking about quite a lot recently. And it's I heard we just discussed before the camera how we're both Lex Fridman fans. And I love his podcast, and he had a guest on recently, and he was talking about the bigger picture, the big meaning of life, and he was talking about the way his description of the universe and life is: the universe is trying to create memory, and on a chemical level, it's all about how molecules bond together to make bigger atoms and molecules, and I won't go into it too much because I won't be able to explain it, but that's where the trail of thought came from. And recently I've been thinking about
what makes people like me and you and other people that design and make, what really drives us to do that, because it is quite a magic process. I've just finished a project making a coffee station for my jiu-jitsu school.
Saw that.
And right, cool. Yeah, really satisfying to finish that project. And I was talking to Claire, who wrote the brief for me, and she was saying, it's great, I'm so happy, so pleased. And I said to her, I'm really happy just because I got to make something again. And it lent back to that same question. It's a little bit like that little boy that we both were, trying to make something. What drives that person to do that? And that's very similar to what drives a cell to split and divide.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What has driven life to create the structure of DNA?
Yeah.
To have this memory that can make all of what is around us,
instead of just crumbling away,
just sitting on the sofa and ingesting crap TV. It's a similar logic, right? Because I'm completely the opposite of that. I can't rest. I have to be making something or
it's motivation. Something. It's this idea that like to manifest and create the world around you is very different to letting it decay.
Yeah.
So you have times arrow is the opposite of entropy. So you have entropy breaking things down and trying to make things as simple as possible, but living things, and you could say life, ostensibly life in general rather than living things, is trying to kind of build up the world into something that is the opposite of entropy.
Yeah, okay.
So I think in some ways, we'll have to ask Lex about this, but I think it's not so much that we're doing the right thing, it's just this is the thing that we do.
Yeah.
So life is motivated to do things in one direction, and entropy is taking it in the other direction.
Yeah.
And that just happens to be, that's what we're built of, so that's what we do.
We need that balance. It's almost the counter to it, because you couldn't exist without the entropy.
Yeah, true.
So it's almost like you're waging war against that.
Yeah. I think we've come from a creating starting point. So that cell that divides, that's what it does. Yeah. So that's what we do. So it's not necessarily that we're doing the right thing, but that's what we do.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yep. And on that podcast, the guy that's on, I wrote it down here. His name is Lee Chromin or Chromian. I can't remember. I'll put it in. We'll put it on the link at the bottom. But he goes even deeper than that, and he goes right back to how molecules are created by the bonds between the atoms, and how he gave a really profound sentence, and I'll find it. And he said, I could take a certain soup of atoms, put them in a box that's completely sealed, and one day life will crawl out of that. And I was like, what?
Yeah. Is this the panpsychism discussion?
I
think
it
was. Yeah, it's about the idea of consciousness existing in everything.
Yeah, probably. It sounds like it's along the same route.
I used to have endless arguments with someone that I used to be with about that.
Really?
I believe that consciousness is in all things.
Yeah, okay.
I don't believe in the differentiation between life and death. I just think it's just one thing transforms, become another thing. So
all of the golden earth came from a supernova, right? Came from the death of a star.
We're all stardust. Yeah,
which blows your mind.
Yeah. I think it's only our perception that sees a differentiation between living and dead things. It's just chemicals doing different things in different states.
Well, that comes on to the kind of the topic of how
we're way off product design now, by the way.
No, but I'm going to bring it back a little bit, because I was thinking about this also, because I remember, so me and Peter both met at the Royal College of Art, where we both did our masters, which was a very, very privileged thing to do. It's a very has an amazing legacy, that school, and it's a very tough environment to be in, and not many people get in there every year. But I had a fabulous. It was probably the best 2 years of my life.
Yeah, ditto.
I really think it was the best 2 years. I finally found people of a similar kind of nature and ambition and drive, and
from all over the world.
Yeah, all over the world. Yeah. You know, I was in a quick short story, but just to illustrate that point, I was on a business trip over in Hong Kong I remember it because I was sweltering and I was in a jacket, and it's not normally what I do. I hate wearing a suit, but it was a very important meeting, and I was a lot younger then and thought it was important to wear a jacket. And I remember they said, right, meet me at the station in Hong Kong. I can't remember the name of the station, but it's this giant train station, and we were getting the train to Shenzhen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in this giant train station underneath this clock where they said to meet. So it's a bit of a... You could see that it was there. So I'm sat there, I'm checking my phone, and I look up and I just see this hand. Jason! And I was like, who the hell's that? Is it for me? Surely not me. And it was one of our, I'm going to forget his name now, but it was one of the guys in the year above us.
Oh, really?
At the Royal College.
No way.
Yeah.
And he spotted you out of all those people.
Out of all those people, he spotted me.
Brilliant.
And he was then teaching at the university there. He was teaching design.
Spooky.
Yeah.
Did he know you were going to, knew you were going to be there?
He just somehow looked up and spotted. And that's another kind of weird thing in the universe. Like, I'll say two things to you, and you'll probably know both of them. One of the weird things is I have this weird loving relationship with how you can just get measurements right.
When I walk in a workshop and it's like, this is to the millimeter exactly the
it's
right
weird.
piece of wood.
Isn't it weird? It's such a strange phenomenon that happens all the time.
Sometimes, yeah.
Or you'll cut it and it's just spot on.
Yeah,
and you're
spooky.
like, that shouldn't be right. Like, the math probably would say that the probabilities it can't happen, but it happens all the time. And the other one is like that, spotting someone or an object out the corner of your eye, and you just know straight away.
Yeah.
Because your eyes are dialed into.
There's a famous book by, I live near a very, very well known animal telepathy specialist.
Whoa,
Rupert Sheldrake. And he's a specialist in telepathy and animals, and speaking animals that have developed telepathy. And he's got a book about how to know when someone is the feeling of being looked at. So you know instinctively when you're actually being watched without seeing the other person.
Wow. You know this guy?
I don't know him. I've been to a couple of his talks. He lives just near to me. My ex's father's friends with him. And it's really on the edge of like what's acceptable. And there's a lot of it that kind of like holds true.
Yeah.
But it's a bit unfair. I'm always kind of like looking at the chinks in the armour to see like what's being made up here.
Yeah.
And I've done some of the experiments where you get people to look at you and try and statistically to figure out if someone actually is looking at you. It's good fun.
Wow.
Good fun.
So is it delving into the world of kind of like tarot readers and kind of like fortune tellers and
no, he's the right side of science.
Oh, is he?
He's very, very rigorous.
Oh, okay.
Still a bit kind of fruitcakey,
right?
Which always kind of sets alarm bells off. But then like it's kind of some rigorous experiments.
The haven't like kind of like CIA and stuff like that. They've done loads of stuff like that.
Yeah, there's always kind of curiosity about that, but it's like
it's like polygraph tests, right? Polygraph tests apparently they don't really work that well.
Well, it depends what you mean by work well. They don't really tell you if someone's telling the truth or not.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on that. It's more about it's like it gives genuine readings of someone's body, and it's up to the interpreter whether or not that means they're telling the truth.
Yeah,
and it's just statistically that usually means they are
right.
Or not.
I mean, there are things, aren't there? Like you cross your arms, you're like that's generally speaking.
Body language. I actually I'm addicted to watching body language videos. It's like the idea of kind of sort of secret information going on inside. So if you watching politicians when you discovered that they were lying, and the person demonstrating to you what are the indicators that showed they were lying. It's fascinating.
Oh, cool. So what are you searching for there? What you just
well, it started off with
body language.
So our friend Fabrizio, who I got in touch with, who lives here. With the last time I was in Manchester, he kind of like told me about he runs a UFO spotting website.
Does he?
Facebook group, sorry, not website. And as for a laugh on the train on the way home, I joined the same one, the Todd Morden UFO Watchers group. And I started following it. And it's kind of entertaining, like seeing these people like, I saw something on Friday night, a light in the sky. And then I ended up watching the Joe Rogan podcast with Bob Lazar. Have you watched
that's
that one?
Amazing. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. And I watched that and I suddenly realised, number one, this guy is not lying.
Yeah.
He believes, 100%, he believes what he's saying.
Yeah.
And then it's in tandem with the one with Commander Fravor.
Is it Jack Fravor?
James Fravor? I'm
James
not sure.
Fravor, yeah,
who's a fighter pilot.
He's similar, right?
He's similar, and he corroborates the stuff that Bob Lazar was saying. I was like, hang on, these guys can't be lying. And then I went onto this site with body language, and these 4 body language experts, like CIA operatives, military people, police, like super specialists to spot, and they're analysing those videos, and they're like, these guys are not lying.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know that.
And it's like, you already know that he's not lying, and then the specialist is saying they're not lying. So you're like, okay, what would it take to fabricate this story? And like, I think it's easier for it to be true than to fabricate the falsehood.
Okay,
but we're way off product design now.
No, it's fine. I said before, it doesn't matter where it goes. It's interesting. It's really it's quite a privilege to be able to sit down and have these conversations that are longer. You don't get to do it at all.
Yeah, there's an interesting Lex Fridman. We're talking about podcasts, but there's an interesting Lex Fridman where he's talking to someone, I can't remember who, about sort of revelations.
Okay.
And UFO revelations, and the guy is basically saying the likelihood is that there is some kind of being or sort of super operating species or something that's gradually just like revealing themselves in whatever happens to be the communicable technology of the time that makes sense to us.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you were to contact an ant colony, you could observe an ant colony and they would never, ever have a perception of you.
Yeah.
But at some point, you want to kind of communicate with the ant colony, and you'd have to do that through pheromones, and you'd have to reveal something to them through some kind of extraordinary pheromone to kind of communicate. And to them, it would be like, oh my God, there's this like godlike occurrence. But you're just kind of slowly communicating to them through a language they can observe. And that could be, if you go down the UFO route or down the religious revelation route, that may be what's going on. It's
and a similar kind of idea is that we just don't have the tools to intercept the information.
Yeah.
We just can't.
For sure we
like
don't.
Pheromones, right?
For sure we don't.
And also, if you think about just outside of our solar system, and you go further outside, the laws of physics change, they think.
Yeah. Could be completely different rules. Yeah. Somewhere else could be completely different rules.
Like a silicon-based life form, not carbon-based.
Yeah. And how would that interface with you?
Yeah.
It's like, it's got to do it somehow.
Imagine if you was as tiny as an ant, and then you put your head right next to the ant. You probably wouldn't even be able to see the head, right? It'd be so huge.
Yeah.
Like, we've never seen anything so large on scale, right?
Yeah.
What's the biggest thing you can see? The biggest thing you can see is, well, even if you get really close to like a huge mountain range, you still can't really see it because in the same way,
it's limited view.
That's a really interesting idea, right?
Yeah. In the metaverse, so I don't know if it's either Facebook, but they're heavily pushing this product. It's so they're basically building Earth 2. It's called Earth 2, and they're selling off the land.
Wow.
And I kind of caught glimpses of this, and there's people buying and selling the land constantly. So it's commodities, like and
are they using? They didn't get the Facebook currency going, did they?
No,
is it Bitcoin?
It's well, you can just buy it with dollars.
Really?
Yeah, you just buy it just cash. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It translates in something called Essence, which is their own sort of virtual currency inside there, but it's not like a cryptocurrency. But it's.
Are you like cash in for credits?
Yeah, basically, yeah. And it's just, it's very gamey.
Yeah.
But it's real, and there's people constantly buying and selling land, and all the kind of major obvious, like Manhattan's gone and all of these famous places have gone. But I kind of looked at that and I thought there's a real opportunity as a creative person to kind of give something valueless, because it's really cheap at the moment, and you can look at this valueless land and think about ways to make that interesting to increase its value within the metaverse.
But is it just like a sphere, like a world map, or
it's Google Earth?
But oh right,
yeah. So you could buy up this trading center, and you can. What? So I bought up like parts of my area where I live, kind of for fun, to have it, and like there's lots of people from around the world buying like around your personal property, which becomes a little bit kind of like, hang on, I've got to get this.
So weird.
But then I thought, like, you could then, once the game actually launches, because it's going to become some kind of virtual game, you can actually think about interesting events or installations or creative ways that you could actually increase the value of that.
100%
of that sort of empty, meaningless land.
So if you buy that little plot, can you like modify and change it however you like?
That's the next stage. Wow. It's like very, very slow process. So they've sold off
a bit like Minecraft, you know, where you build an environment. Wow.
Yeah. And they could, I just think like in the future, I don't know, maybe like putting on an exhibition. That's really boring, putting on an exhibition, but there could be like really cool things you could do with like this random place that actually
Is this really the divide? Is this the divide where this is where it starts, isn't it? Where like, you know, you have that generational gap. Like the way like my grandparents, when they were around, they just never used mobile phones, didn't know how to use it.
Yeah,
it feels like there's going to be a gap at some point.
I think a lot of people are going to be spending a lot of time in there. Yeah, I think it's not just wearing their headset, which is a little bit of a silly gimmick. I think just the kind of, you know, we're already sort of like just online all the time for everything. And I think as things like that take over, where there are economies running within these worlds, which is completely true already, like World of Warcraft and all of these huge games, they have economies running within those worlds, which are
artifacts and objects and outfits, and they're all traded already, right?
They're all tradable, and I think more and more there'll be people working within those worlds. So it's super dystopian. Which is great. Coming back to, we were just talking about how Swifty's a physical product, and it's so good to have something so like physical that lasts, and it's you know, we do have needs as humans to have physical objects, and it's to have something tangible is like when the whole world is going to become sucked into these kind of meaningless places.
One of the weird things about starting a company and then like building a product and then launching it, one of the weird things is seeing all of the opportunities that the commercial world follows so like the tricks of marketing, so how you sell the product, how you embellish it, how you write alluring copy, all that kind of stuff. And then also with the product itself, like coming back to what you just said with building a product that lasts, like there's so many tricks that have been suggested to us to make a product that maybe doesn't last as long.
I'm sure,
because then it'll get replaced. And there's whole subjects and topics around that of product life cycle and customer retention and just the things that need to fail, and then you can charge more, and then selling replacement parts, not just on their own but as part of a bigger replacement part. So they have to buy more
subscriptions.
And it's like
it's for a game.
I mean, it's all driven towards, you know, driving profit and driving shareholder return. And one of the interesting things like building the company is like how many times you have to say no to that to try and keep it
on target.
On target for me also personally, because I don't want to become that, you know, corporate animal where it's just the pursuit of profit. It is coming back to what we said earlier, and it is that kind of like childhood fascination with what is an object and what makes an interesting, engaging object that you want to be. You want to create an experience and a memory for the person using it, like what you were saying with, and we should talk about that next. You know, going on the school run with your son, and it saves you half an hour a day. But you know, those memories for your son, what he's going to reflect back in years to come and be thinking, oh yeah, when Dad took me up the hill, and those little moments of like laughing and smiling and joy it is absolutely priceless. And I know it sounds really cheesy to say, but it's so true. We've got so many customers we've had a customer that got married on their Swifties.
Really?
Went down the aisle on their Swifties. We did a white one for them. Brilliant. For the wife. That's how much it means to them.
It's quality.
I mean, I would never imagine if Kilner would have absolutely murdered me if I said, we're going to ride down the aisle on our Swifties. So
taking the work home takes it to a new level.
But the commercial world, the pressure of like all the little cheats you can put into a product or an object or a service that just drives more profit is you're surrounded by it, and trying to be resilient to that. And that's why I really, you know, and we should definitely talk about your work and also FORMcard, because FORMcard's awesome.
We'll come to that. I think there was something I heard, there was an interview with a guy who was talking about branding, and particularly about Japanese products.
Okay.
Japanese products, which are always incredibly high quality. You get some flaky ones here and there, but it's very rare, and everything's very, very high quality in Japan. And he said one of the interesting things is with Japanese branding, or rather American branding, they always talk about high quality. It's so normal to see like high quality or top quality. In Japan, they never talk about quality.
Okay.
Because it's expected that it will be as good as you can possibly make it.
By
That's
default.
what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
And that's philosophically, it's about trusting each other.
Yeah.
And that's not about like companies just taking advantage of their customers. It's about, I respect you, so I'm going to do the best for you possible.
Yeah.
And that's really sort of, it means quite a lot.
Yeah, that's a great quality. I was fortunate enough to go to Japan, and I spent a bit of time in Tokyo, and it was a great experience. We've tried to sell into Japan for years, and we did have a partner at a point in time, never really got going, but you're right, and that's what makes it very difficult, because you're kind of like worlds apart in terms of your approach. I wonder what we could do to try and make that more applicable here.
Have you ever sold to the MoMA in New York?
No, I haven't. No. Wow, that would be amazing achievement.
I'm sure you could get in there. But have
you done stuff with them?
We sold. It's a long story, but we sell FORMcard there.
Great.
It's kind of gone a little bit cold recently, but the only reason that we ended up with the MoMA was because Loft in Japan, who we didn't end up selling FORMcard to, basically all of the sales come through the MoMA in New York. Don't know if that's a top secret piece of information.
It's not anymore.
But that's the way to get in to Loft.
Okay.
Yeah, we ended up with a Japanese distributor who was absolutely rubbish, and he kind of blew that contact. But we ended up selling in the MoMA accidentally.
Wow.
Through trying to get into Loft.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it weird the way, that's the other really weird thing about kind of life and stuff, it's all the weird little connections that go elsewhere. It's like a really complicated tube map in 3 dimensions. Like you speak to this person, then dun, 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 and it happens. It's so strange how all those things,
little steps lead to different things. I teach on Fridays at London Metropolitan University, and I was explaining to my students like some of the best contacts you've got. We're giving like a careers talk about who do you go and speak to and what do you do to contact these people. Some of the best contacts you've got are the people right here, right now. And I'm not being silly. Like all of those people go on to get jobs, and they all remember who you are. And it's these little contacts that lead to kind of larger things. And you're already part of like a community 100%. That actually like support you.
Yeah, 100%. And it's nice like to be now. That's the nice thing about getting older, is you can then retrospectively look back and go, oh yeah, and boom, 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 and that's where it went. Yeah, it's really cool. I really want to introduce the audience to your work and what you do, because I really respect it. I think it's cool.
Thank you.
And also your the FORMcard business. You can talk a bit about that. So, sure. Let's start with FORMcard.
Okay.
Yeah.
A handy pocket-sized card of meltable bioplastic that you can keep in your pocket or tool drawer for unexpected situations. I can't remember. Fixes things. It's good.
It's really cool. I've used it endlessly, so many times. You sent me a whole bunch of them a few years back, and we put them in every carton that we shipped out.
Brilliant.
So we gave them out for free to loads of customers.
Lovely.
We will do some kind of project with Swifty with them for sure. Little credit card sized pieces of plastic that you can. Would you say you melt it? Is it melted?
Yeah, you melt it in a cup of hot water.
Yeah, melt it.
Dead simple. It's what they make paracetamol capsules out of. You can buy the raw granules as just like rice, and you melt it down. But I was doing some workshops where we were using that and some other different fixing products, and I just kept on thinking this should be as easy as possible to use. How do you make this as accessible as possible to people? And it was 2 things that you had to melt down the granules and then flatten it into a shape that you could then use. And it was this 2-step process that I just figured had to be simpler to make it much more accessible to people. It's used like widely in like the maker community, the raw granules, but I just wanted to make it as sort of simple for people to understand as possible.
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, you really nailed it. They're great. They're so handy just to keep.
Yeah, in your wallet. Yeah, tool drawer.
Yeah. Like my son's glasses broke. They break every so often because he's just bouncing around on a trampoline, and had to fix them for school next day. Got out the FORMcard, cut a bit off, melted it in the cup, wrapped it around the arm, let it dry, let it go off a little bit, put it on a cold tap. And it was perfect.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I launched it on Kickstarter. We did Kickstarter, then Indiegogo, and it was just I made the product for me.
Yeah,
I honestly thought this is what I want, and then when I went on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, I was connecting with the whole world, and having the same mentality, kind of just being shouted back at you, and it's just such a beautiful thing to connect with so many people. It was a really, really lovely direct. It's a bit different once you sort of well, very different for you actually, but when you launch a business and you start working with retailers or distributors, you get disconnected from the customers. You do get feedback all the time, but there is a kind of disconnection. You can still, social media does it to some degree, but on crowdfunding you have absolute coal-face connection with raw information coming back at you, which was overwhelming. It's really, really good. So it's nice to connect with people in that way.
What's your favourite fix?
Ooh, my favourite fix. Oh God,
we'll put some images up on the video as well. So if you're just listening, go onto the YouTube channel and watch the video version of this, and we'll show some images. We'll cut them in of what they can do.
Yeah, so I've had some good ones. There was a vet in Scotland who was fixing animals with air, and he did a bird of prey.
What?
He did he made a splint for a peregrine falcon.
Wow,
which is amazing. I've had lots. There's been some really kind of moving things. There was a guy in Japan who had who makes his own prosthetic hands and sort of semi kind of articulated models. And he said, can you do specific colours? And I said, well, it's really expensive to do a colour product run. You have to change the machine and it's really expensive. And I said, what are you thinking about? Before he had told me what it was for, and he explained his situation. And I actually get from the factory, when they're changing the colours over, I request all of the colours in between as well, because they're still producing the product, but they're just ejecting all the other colours.
So it's waste before it gets... okay.
So usually we regrind it and then turn them back into new colours.
Okay.
But I always ask for a proportion of it to be sent to me for kind of arty projects and things. Yeah. And this guy told me what it was for, and I had a huge range of kind of fleshy skin colours.
Oh.
And he just told me exactly the color he was after, and I had just had a whole stack of exactly the colors for him. So I sent him a bunch in Japan, which was really nice, and he made his own hand
for his. Wow, that's insane!
Yeah, at the right color as well, which is really, really good.
That's cool. That's ultimate customization.
Yeah, but the things that I really like the most is just people just fixing really banal objects all the time, and it's such a nice
like a kitchen doorknob or something.
Just little quick little fixes.
Those little annoying ones that are just they're around forever, and you're like, I need to sort that out.
Yeah,
you can.
Yeah, it's just kind of empowering people. That sounds really grand, to empower people to fix the world around them. That's the kind of what's behind it.
No, but it does. It enables it, because there's a lot of it's like some of our customers, the amount of customers that don't know how to use just the tools that we send with the scooters. Some people just don't use tools. And this is a toolless process that you can do in your kitchen, like making a cup of tea, which breaks down all those barriers. And I'm pretty sure a proportion of your customers, now that they've fixed something, they're like, I can now go and fix this. And it starts them on this trajectory.
Absolutely,
Which is
it's the difference between... I don't know if it's an intentional conspiracy, but there is a definite desire for sort of consumers to be as passive as possible.
100%.
And just to be consumers. And as you say, they're encouraged to, when that thing is broken, you have to buy another one, or buy a different one, you buy this. And it's that's not the world we come from. It's like, you make the world, you create things. And, you if you go to somewhere like Turkey, or there's great... It used to be a website, but it's now just a Facebook group called AfriGadget, which is all about ingenuity in Africa. Do you know that one?
No.
It's amazing.
But I know the types of things that they come up with is mind-blowing.
Yeah, and it's this... There's different kind of states of mind can take over different cultures, And some cultures have this mentality, like in Turkey, everyone can do everything. In Africa, in this AfroGadget blog, you can see like everyone makes everything. You make your own helicopter. You make your own fuel silo. Wow. It's insane. Like guys making these, like the size of this building full of methane gas with a flame coming out of it.
Oh my goodness.
Totally wild. This kid built a helicopter, you know?
He built a
helicopter out of rubbish.
What, and he sat in it?
A working helicopter.
No way.
It's amazing. So many things like that. Walkie-talkie systems, building their own mobile phones, like crazy, like super advanced things. But I think very quickly, through whatever kind of consumerists situation that a culture finds itself in, people are pacified quite quickly.
Yes.
And I just like, to me, that just alarm bells are ringing as soon as you get a product that is you can't take apart and you can't fix or modify or adapt. That's not my world.
Yeah, same. Yeah. I hate it, and that's similar to what I was just saying before. It's like the commercial world is so stacked up to do that.
Yeah,
it's very hard to accept some of the compromises you have to accept.
Yeah, it's tough. And it's branding as well. It's like the idea that you need to rely on this brand because this is the real thing. Like, I'll get the cheap one, and it's all tied into kind of brand allegiance and just treading on the right path and keeping you as a good consumer. And that's like, it's wrong.
Yeah, it is wrong, and I think in some ways we're touching on an interesting idea, and that's the way that we said earlier. What is it that makes the cell divide? It's you could call it creativity, you could call it design, you could call it engineering. That's kind of like, no pun intended, but in our DNA.
Yeah.
And if you take that away from the human, that's what maybe causes all this angst and all this utter violence online, with people being so frustrated that they're happy to kind of go after and troll in a very public way.
Because they're not doing anything in the real world.
Because they're not doing anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
It's a symptom of modern life.
Yeah, and that's why, finishing that project that I did, the coffee station, it just felt so great just to finish it. 'Cause it was like
manifesting.
It's finished. It's great, and we went through a whole process to do it. I love doing those. I love it when it's finished. But as you know, as a designer, it isn't really ever finished. It's always like, One of the things that I always tell people is it's a little bit of a coming from like an object designer world, because the word designer gets bandied around so much, and that's marketing speaking. But the thing I offer, like sometimes people go, they'll say something like, "Oh, you're a product designer," and they'll look at that coffee station and be like, "Oh, I bet your house is amazing," and I'm like, "No,
mine is full of all the stuff that nobody wanted to buy." It's all the broken things.
Yeah, you never get around to doing your own stuff, and I can never buy an object that someone else has.
Yeah,
I find it very hard to buy something.
Yeah, I've got
when I know I can make it.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of things at the studio that other people have given to me as like a gift, or like people whose work I really, really respect, and I can't take it home. I don't feel like my home is worthy of the stuff that other people give me. It's a weird, you're trapped in that betwixt. Must be easy just to be like a banker or something. You just amass really cool stuff and stick it up on the wall.
I don't know. I think they're dead on the inside.
I've met a few of those people, and they're like, "Oh, you're like actually all right." Some of them.
No, I think just acquiring objects, in your house, and it wouldn't make me feel happy. I do like going to really well designed spaces, because that's not something that I do day in, day out. Like I can really appreciate a lovely interior and a lovely space that just works well, it's lit well, and like green spaces, I can really appreciate that. Like I would if I had the funds, I would buy that in. But it's just something about things that you can sit on that are around this kind of size I have a real issue with. I can't buy them. It's really hard.
It's too much, isn't it?
It's really weird.
IKEA.
Yeah, God,
much easier. No. Just abdicate all creative responsibility. Funny enough, my sofa in my sitting room, one of our friends, Tim Simpson.
Tim, yeah.
He reminded me about, there was this period of time where I had an really horrible old sofa bed, and I looked at it and thought, I can just like get the mechanism and just adapt it and like make my own sofa. It's easy. I'll just make my own sofa bed. And I went through this period of time where I just didn't have time to do this, and I built like a big wooden box, and there was just like this Frankenstein mechanism with some cushions on it. It's about a year.
Probably pretty dangerous.
It was really horrible. I had kids in the house with this like lethal mechanism. So I just bought a sofa in the end. There are limits to my there are limits to what you can make.
So can we talk a little bit about some of your really cool projects, and maybe talk about kind of like your approach as a studio? Like your most recent the facade that you did for the hospital. That's really cool.
Thank you.
I really love that whole concept
project,
behind
that
it.
one.
Yeah, it looks. I saw some of the images on your website of the installation. I didn't realise it was such big, heavy objects.
It was like quite an undertaking. That took 3 years to do.
Wow.
It's quite a complicated thing. Straddled a bit of COVID in the middle and towards the end. So it's I was invited to pitch for a product for installation for a hospital, it's a very, very well known kids hospital in Scotland, the Royal Hospital for Sick Children. And I got the commission, and it was based on an idea of, it's a new hospital that's getting built. Basically, it's a very, very well-known old hospital that was getting taken down, and they were recreating this hospital, amalgamated with another department, huge super hospital. And I put forward the idea of reversing the idea as the occupants as being the patients, and more as to feature as the exterior of the building. Semi-exterior of the building. It was to design it's called the spine wall that runs through the landscape, goes through the hospital and then out the other side.
Oh right. Okay.
And we took scans of patients and staff skin textures, and then CNC'd that into concrete panels. So the whole building is wrapped in the different patients' skin textures.
That's amazing.
It was really, really cool project.
And all those skin textures are staff that are still there? It's
a mixture, so there's different people from different departments.
Right, okay.
So there's one very well-known patient, a young boy called Bo, who is featured there. There's a lady called, it's so long ago. There's different people for different, and the idea was that sometimes it's not always clear exactly what it is you're looking at. It's kind of folds and wrinkles and funny textures. So it's skin. In some places the tiles come together and you can see like that's a fold of someone's elbow or a bit of their hand. But in other places it's just kind of like jumbled tiles.
It's mixed up, yeah.
So it's the idea is kind of, you might walk past it 100 times and not know exactly what it is, but it's this kind of feeling of kind of sort of macroscopic textures.
It's cool. It almost looks like you're in a helicopter, and it's like early morning, and you got those really long shadows across a landscape, and then you're like, oh no, it isn't. I know this. And then you kind of have that revelation.
That's great. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. This moment of like, oh, I know that. It should be that kind of quality. So you're waiting by the lift, and I'm like, oh, that is like somebody's like bit of their eye or crowfoot on there, something like that. That was it. That was a huge project, which was great. Partially me.
Did you CNC the concrete then, or did you make a mold?
I just sort of jumped a few steps. So the CNC work was done in Germany by it's the biggest concrete facade paneling company in Europe, called Reckley, and so all the CNC work was done by them in Germany, and the molds, enormous silicon molds, were done. Incredible facilities there. All the molds were done there, and then the casting was done in the UK in Wolverhampton.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the installation was done.
What was it like getting the regulations right? Because they're big, heavy objects. I saw all the steel work that you...
It was like
the cleats.
Yeah, and if you can imagine with working with the NHS and with a huge building company and 2 other fabrication companies, there was like the chain of responsibility.
Yeah.
Because it's not just like health and safety, it's like bacteriologically health and safety as well.
Oh, yeah,
there's
okay.
loads of kind of considerations that have to be made.
Inside.
It's inside in a hospital, so there's like all kinds of... There's so many layers of people to discuss everything and to okay everything with. It's funny, like...
So they have to be like cleanable as well?
Yeah. Sort of through steam clean, and there's there was certain things about some undercuts and things. There was like design issues with bacteria and stuff like that. But it's funny, I was talking to my students about sort of being able to summarize your project in a sentence is really important. Like really think about what's your work about, what you're trying to say in a simple sentence. Really helps you focus and sort of cut out all the noise.
Yep.
and sort of focus really on what that project is about. And when I proposed the design to the arts organisation Ginkgo, and to the NHS, it was very, very simple and clear. It's about these skin textures wrapping around the building. It's very kind of focused. And all of the complexities about how to make it, all the regulations, which were incredibly complex, that there was lots of people working on it. It was quite easy to kind of deal with all of those things because the simplicity of the concept was just kept us kind of focused.
Yep.
You know where you're aiming for. Conversely, I worked on another 2 projects in the hospital, which on paper were much more simpler. They were huge murals, but there was lots of people involved in it. And I didn't really have a simple focused sentence. And it meant that every meeting things were going off in different directions.
Okay.
And the project got pulled. It was a nice result, but it was a much, much more complicated process, even though it was technically easier.
I think that's an interesting point that you've mentioned there. You've highlighted something which I've been thinking about recently, and that's sometimes like, do you ever get people that go, "Oh, I thought of that"? You do, don't you? Everyone in our field gets that, and they say that. And I've been thinking about that a lot. Like, what is it that makes them say something like that? And obviously, you can go, "Yeah, but what did you do with it?" And the idea of a scooter, it's not a unique. I didn't invent the concept of 2 wheels and a platform.
There's a lot more to it than the idea, though.
There's a lot more to it than that. Yes, but sometimes actually, there's looking at that step before, and that's that decision-making process. I think it takes the magic really comes from you being able to see that simple thing in the first place.
Mm-hmm. The hardest thing, particularly when you're a young designer or when you're a student, is you've got lots of voices pulling you in lots of different directions, saying lots of different things, and you can try and please everyone by putting more and more content in, and it's not about that. It's about cutting out all of that stuff.
Yep.
Which is why the simple sentence works. It's like, what is this actually about? What am I looking at in front of me? And all the other information can come in the background, but it's like the main focal point is really essential to get right.
Yeah, it's a bit like, to put it in context, it's a little bit like a Swiss Army knife, but just think about when you take the toothpick out, how beautiful it is.
So good.
And it clicks into place.
Those tweezers.
That tiny little bit. Forget about all the other stuff. It's just that little bit.
It always gets lost. At some point, where's my toothpick?
Can't really make a FORMcard toothpick, can you?
I've never done that one, of course. Yeah.
There you go.
God, I'm going to do one of those.
I've never done something so tiny and so
I've done
finesse.
really tiny ones. I did a nice FORMcard workshop in Hull for when it was the capital of culture, or the city of culture, and we did a Lego workshop. It was amazing. Cool. It was like 40 children, because you can make it, depending on the temperature that it's at, you can either get it to stick to the Lego or you can release from the Lego.
That's right, yeah.
And you can do removable Lego components, which is really nice. So you can make like tentacles and wings. And
cool.
And it's nice because you've got like the linearity of Lego, and then you have like tentacles coming off it.
Cool.
And they can all pop on and off, so you do like multicolored bits.
Oh, cool.
But I did a whole bunch of like the little minifigs, and like making little guns and swords and wings and hats and things. So they're like really tiny ones.
Lego's super expensive. We've got loads of Lego.
Yeah.
And I've got loads of Playmobil. I went a bit nuts one Christmas for my son Otto's Christmas present, and I got him on eBay a Playmobil castle.
Whoa!
But then I was bidding on all the little characters. Ooh. And they're like,
it's very collectible.
10 quid for like 2.
And those markets are very regulated. The secondhand Lego market.
Oh really?
It's not like, I'm just going to get some secondhand Lego. It's like this many kilograms cost this much.
Yeah, okay.
And it will include 2 minifigs. It's very, very closely regulated.
I'm probably the worst reseller of that stuff, because it's just all in a box mixed up. And the stuff that I've bought online from sellers is like really well organised.
Do you know what? I was going past like some houses, and someone was clearing out their kids' stuff, putting all their toys out in the street. And I got like 4 or 5 big Lego boxes of like, but all the models were perfectly made and all the parts were there. It was, I don't know, it was like a serial killer's house or something. It was like who? Because when I was a kid, I used to make stuff out of Lego. I used to make costumes for the figures out of balloons. I did this whole aquatic scene with all these guys in balloon costumes, and I made a little Lego grinder so that I could shape my Lego bricks. So my Lego bricks had texture on.
Oh, check you out. A textured Lego. Oh my gosh.
I was really into it. But that was the whole kind of freedom of it, which is, I don't want to talk negatively about Lego because it's still incredible product. But it very much has gone into like, this is the kit you get and this is what you make. Yeah. And that is very much kind of like dangerous territory where something beautifully open ends up as like a consumer product. The openness is still there, but the kind of branding is very much...
It's the commercial world. It's the same thing. It's this endless cycle of we have to make it better. We have to make it new because, there's the seasonality of buying. There's all of the other salaries you need to keep and you need to generate revenue for them and generate jobs for them.
Yeah, it's a reality.
And it's a very... It's
funny that my son the other day, someone gave him a Minecraft Lego kit. And it'd been out for a few days, and him and his brother, they'd lost one of the bricks.
Okay.
And they just stopped. And I said, why have you stopped? We can't find that brick. And there's like a whole box of mixed Lego that I got from eBay. And what was in their head was we couldn't proceed because we didn't have the exact brick. I was a bit like, it's not my son.
Yeah.
I'll get him back on it.
What a different world we grew up in. Gosh, I was Meccano.
Really?
I had loads of Meccano.
Wow.
Yeah, that was top.
Is that still out there? Probably is still going somewhere.
I hope so. Yeah,
there are some really cool kits out there when you look now.
Yeah.
There's a good one called Make Do for doing cardboard constructions.
Okay.
Have you seen that?
No.
And it's like nuts and bolts, and there's tools and things for like creating things out of cardboard.
Awesome.
It's a really, really good kit.
I remember the Meccano stuff that I had. There was like a metal version of it as well. And they were really structural. You could really make strong spanning structures.
Yeah, very cool.
I remember being in the garden with all my little action figures, and I made like this layer platform thing out of the steel Meccano. I'm sure it was Meccano. And you could bend them as well. Yeah. And I was bending them. And so it's like all those little principles of making rigidity out of different structures is such a great thing to learn as a kid.
Absolutely, yeah.
And now we're just going to be... You can't do that in the metaverse. Or maybe you can. We've just not figured out a way of doing it.
I think we're in a generational thing here where it's like, I think they do and they can. And I think they're kind of modifying the world in their ways. But it's just sometimes difficult to see how it's going on.
Well, I guess if Elon does what he's saying he's going to do with Neuralink and he is able to get in there... Well, then that's all almost wizardry, right? You'd be able to have a two-way data stream with the synapses of your brain. So rather than physically touching, it's the synapse that's going off, right? That creates that feeling of you've picked it up.
Yeah.
So if you're able to actually induce that synapse, you think you've picked it up.
Yeah. There's many times, like I've got an Oculus and like there's many times you're doing things and like
phantom
pushing buttons and stuff and you do get like really good feedback. Wow. Like it's very well. So the controllers, they're not just buttons. It's actually sensing where your thumbs are in the air around the controller. So you can see your thumbs moving when you're not even touching buttons. And that's a very spooky kind of quality to it. There's a really good trick for phantom sensations where if you put someone's hand underneath the table and on the top of the table they put their hand under the table and you tap the back of their hand, and on the top of the table in tandem with touching their hand you knock the top of the table, and you keep doing this for a minute or so, and then at some point you stop tapping them on the back of the one under the table and you knock on the top, and they still feel like the finger is tapping on underneath of the hand, underneath the table.
So you must have like a backup visual system in your
it's building up as you're knocking the table. So it's associating that noise with the tapping.
Okay, it's a little bit like have you heard of it when you can put on those glasses that reverse the world upside down?
Yeah, and you just adjust to compensate.
And
then it's great.
Take them off, you're still upside down.
Is it coming back?
Like minions walking down the road. That's crazy.
I had a similar thing when I got COVID in the old days. I had proper COVID where you lost your taste.
Yeah.
And did you have it?
I've had COVID, but I didn't lose my taste.
So like it was really, really weird. Where suddenly like everything was just empty. It was just shapes, just textures and shapes, and that was really weird. Like, and I had only for like sort of 20 days lost my taste.
That's a long time though.
It was quite like a period. I was like, is this coming back?
Yeah.
But I ended up sort of cooking things that would just give you some kind of feedback, texture feedback instead of taste feedback. And it's really spooky where you could be eating toothpaste or cornflakes or broccoli and it's all just kind of just shapes moving around in your mouth.
Oh, weird.
It's really, really unrewarding. So then you do things like I come up with the ultimate COVID fried egg, where you get fried egg, and it's the ultimate sandwich with a COVID fried egg. So you cook a fried egg, really crispy fried egg, but when you put it on first, then you cover it in sesame seeds. Right. Then when you flip it over, you toast the sesame seeds into the egg, so it creates like this hard shell on the crunchy egg.
Sounds great.
It's really good. And then you do it with mange too, which are extremely crunchy, and you have like crunchy toast. It's a lot of crunchiness in one thing, but there's no taste in any of it. So you just have like
super crunch.
So, but I started to get into this. I was training my brain to kind of get some kind of feedback from the things I was eating.
Yep.
Because I was regularly forgetting to eat. I don't really get that hungry normally, and I was finding that I just forget, like be 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon and I'd not eaten anything.
Oh wow!
Because there was no reward system in eating things.
Weird.
It was really, really odd. It's a really interesting experience.
Okay.
I was a bit sad when it went away because I was kind of getting into like experimenting with it.
Yeah. And what does the fried egg taste like now that you've got the crunchiness and the taste?
It's still good.
Yeah, well, I think sesame and egg sounds great. A little bit of soy sauce, maybe.
Could do that, on the mange too. Yeah. Mange too rudders.
New recipe right there. What are you working at the moment then in the studio?
I'm doing some commissions. I'm working with a gallery in London, Sarah Myerscough Gallery, and I do lots of furniture for her. So I'm making a big, very long cabinet for a client in America. It's one of my sort of bleeding pieces with nails bleeding down the front.
Okay.
And that's like 5 meter long cabinet.
Wow.
That's a big thing at the moment. And got a whole bunch of things gone completely blank.
Loads of projects at the same time.
I have got another Kickstarter that's bubbling away in the background, which I can't tell you about, but it is reusing waste wood for no other reason than it's just like really cool stuff to reuse, and it's going to be a really fun kind of office toy in a way, or like kids toy, office toy / domestic object that is that it will resonate with everyone. Like, we've always got this at home and I always wanted to do this with this. That's as much as I can tell you.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
I'm saying that I haven't actually got my head around how the campaign's going to be run or doing the video. It's like, but I usually think about things for very long periods of time before doing them.
Okay. Like what? You mean projects, or you mean just in general?
Projects, yeah. Okay. I usually have like a very long period of things sitting in my mind with great intention for them to happen, and sometimes they do happen and sometimes they don't happen, and then it will seem like they just come out of nowhere, but usually I've been sitting on them for a very, very long period of time.
But do you intentionally do that, or is that just life gets in the way, projects get in the way?
A mixture of both, a mixture of all of them. I've got this list. I'm a list person. I have hundreds of lists.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I've got like at the moment on 118, but actually there's many more on top of those 100. There's sub lists as well.
Where do you keep your lists?
I have on my phone. I use Microsoft To Do, which is great, like simple list making. And I've got one.
So you can check them.
You can check them off. Yeah, it's very, very clean and simple. It's not like Evernote, which is a bit convoluted. This one is just like entries. And I've got one called My Work, and it's got 300 or 400 items on there, and I'm absolutely committed to all of the ideas on there, and I know what they all look like. I was speaking to a friend about like sketching and how I do very, very little sketching anymore. I usually just think about things in word form, and I usually just describe it in a sentence, and that's usually enough.
Yeah.
But I'm really committed to all of those ideas. I can pick anyone out, and I know exactly what it's going to look like. And the nitty gritty, I might sketch just to kind of figure out like how something goes together, for example. But it's usually just like.
But it's just a tool, isn't it? I think in the design world, for people who are not in that world, and specifically like if you're an undergrad or something like that, then a lot of people get really hung up about sketching and somehow this idea that if you can't sketch, then you're not a designer, and it's just absolute rubbish, because it's
different people work in different ways.
It's just a tool, and I think I'm very similar. Like I used to sketch a hell of a lot, and that helped me with the process. But just becoming experienced with the process and going through it, it's built up a level of confidence where I know, like you, if you visualize it in your mind and you write out some words. I don't do it the same way as yourself. I keep a messy sketchbook, which I write projects in as well, because you've got the confidence of going through it. You don't have to choose the same methodology all the time. Especially when you don't have a boss over you, like in a design studio where you would have to produce those sketches.
Here are my ideas. It's me.
I'll just sit here until you figure out a way of saying they're rubbish, and then in 2 weeks' time we'll have the same meeting and you'll present the same idea.
Ooh, that's harsh.
That's corporate world for you.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, really.
Yeah.
That's how it works
for me.
Yeah. God, I don't think I could ever work for anyone ever again.
It's weird. Some of my friends worked in studios where they were deliberately not handing over their best ideas because they were like, I'm keeping that one for me.
Yeah. I've heard similar stories. It's a tough world. I mean, there's not many good jobs in the field, is there? There's so many different jobs than the actual kind of like, the nitty gritty of the designing part. And that's what when I've taught in the past, I've always said, if you just want to be in this world, it's a great world to be in. There's lots of areas that you go into, as opposed to the person that sits down and comes up with the final idea and puts it into production. I really love the stuff that excites me is now later in my career is the manufacturing process. I really get excited by the multiple process, and
you're seeing some really weird stuff now. The carbon fiber stuff, like having contact with people doing like not just kind of here's some carbon fiber. It's like actually doing what it's meant for.
And it's also what I really enjoy is complex many-step processes. I love the idea of I love finding out more about the design of that system. So the system of manufacturing, the system that is in place for the guys and the girls in the carbon fiber factory, the organization of them. They're incredibly organized. They have to be, because the way that the frame or the fork is made is so critical. And all the little shapes that they cut out individually, like they're stamped out, they're die cut out. Like it's sad matters. Because it's never seen. And it's such a beautiful process.
Right.
And then a lot of the time, the frames are completely painted, and you don't see the beauty of that structure underneath. It's like a hidden. That's almost like a Japanese philosophy, the interior beautiful embroidered
you never mention
jacket.
The quality, because it's expected that it's of the highest quality, which is, I think that's enough for many people. Just knowing that it's of that quality is enough.
I think
there's nothing more suspicious than someone telling you it's top quality. It's like, those are the ones you're like, is it really top quality?
You're right. It shouldn't need to be explained. It's a little bit like the side view of the scooter. Like that is the hero shot always, and it's because I want you to see the beauty of the geometry, and a lot of the time, like when we're talking with marketing ideas and stuff, it's like, if we need to tell you why you want it, then we've already failed. Like, you should just be able to see it and go, oh, that looks cool, I want to write that. Mm-hmm. And there is
the directness of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why
that's even sort of less than the simple sentence. It's like, it's just the object it is.
Just look at that. Yeah. Like, I'm pointing to my screen over there of a new scooter, which is I'm not showing on camera, but I've shown Peter before. Yeah. But yeah, you should be able to see the objects and go, oh yeah, I want to.
That's at the heart of minimalism in the true kind of sort of art sense, where Donald Judd or Sol LeWitt or any of those sort of the fathers of minimalism, it was about, when you look at an object, look at a sculpture, like all art is representative. And when you look at a minimalist sculpture, what they were hoping was, you don't think about something else.
Yeah.
You look at it and you see the object for what it is.
Yeah.
It's not representing a bunch of flowers. It's not representing a field or the sun. It's like, I'm looking at the actual thing. And there's nobody in between you and it. Even the artist hasn't been involved in kind of constructing this. A factory somewhere has constructed this, and it's beautiful for its own reasons, or it is what it is in front of you. And I never really understood that. And then I went to, and I'd read about it, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting idea. And then I went to see a Donald Judd exhibition years and years ago, and I walked in and went, like, he's nailed it.
Yeah.
Do you know his work?
No, not massively familiar.
But just lots of kind of cuboid, beautifully produced cuboid structures, and just they're extremely minimalist. They are what they are.
Yeah.
Which is, I heard an interesting thing last night, actually. There was a linguist talking about language, and the comment from him was that music is the art that all art aspires to be, because it's the only non-representative art form. So it can make you think about other things, but it is actually what it is, which is like at the center of the minimalist philosophy.
And it's like almost one data stream. It's just audio. Well, unless you're watching the video, I guess. But
yeah,
generally speaking, we consume it just audibly.
It's not pretending to be something else.
Yeah.
The music actually is what it is. Which is quite an interesting. I'd never thought about it like that.
It's a really good take, isn't it? I guess unconsciously we'd try. I think all of those lessons are really good to put into the objects that we manufacture. And I was just going to talk about graphics and how we never put graphics on the frames. Mm-hmm. And I was just going to try and explain why I think commercially that is the case. Like when you go into a bike shop and you've got all these like mountain bikes with these amazing tube forms and shapes, which are all hydroformed. Hydroforming is where you take the tube, you put it into a mold, and then you put a high pressure kind of like a waxy oil, and it literally inflates the steel tube or aluminium tube. It's a fascinating process. And so you go into like an Evans or something, you see all these amazing bike frames, but then they're just covered in graphics and
dressing them up.
Yeah, and it's trying to make a point, a difference between the price points, between the brands, what you stand for, what's like on trend. But I think commercially, it's an interesting story as to why I think it's like that. And it's interesting because it's completely opposite to what we do, because we don't put graphics on our scooters unless it's like a co-branding or something, because we want to keep it as pure as possible, so you can see the beauty of that frame. But in the kind of bike world, if you're a big bike brand, it's very common for them to not necessarily design the tubing of their frames.
Well, they delegate that.
So what? Yeah. So the way that because you've got like so many seasons a year, and you've got so many new models coming out, so it's generally every year is a new model. And if you think a decent bike brand will maybe have, a large array of models, so maybe 50, 60 different models. That's a hell of a lot of tubing. That's a hell of a lot of tooling. So the way that the industry is kind of set up, and it's not like this for everybody, but some of the big brands operate like this. There are tubing manufacturers, and they will come out with a new tubing design. And so at the big trade shows, the different bike brands will bid on that tubing, and they will have the new style of tubing for maybe for America market, maybe for the European market, and the lesser brands with less buying power or less influence, maybe they have to choose last year's tubing that's now become available. So like the top tube of like a mountain bike, it's like from the seat post, it will, the extrusion will kind of be this amazing shape, and it will come to the head tube and it's welded together. So to make the tooling for that, it's expensive.
Right.
So what you can do is go to a tubing supplier and say, right, I want that one, that one, that one, that one, and there's my
Frankenstein bike. That's interesting.
A lot of them are made like that, yeah.
Interesting.
And they'll bid on different tubing for different territories in the world. So maybe you'll have like a Specialized or Kona or whoever it is. I don't know whether those guys do that, but they'll have different deals going on in different areas.
Right, yeah.
And so what you get at the end is this frame that you then need to make a difference with. And so graphics then comes in.
On to unify it, right? Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. So it's not an intentional design process. It's the structure of the commercial world.
Yeah.
Which then makes you
to scale that they're working on, they need to unify it somehow. Yeah,
because then you have to make a compromise and go, okay, well, how can we make a point of difference? How can we make this feel like it's on brand, and what does our brand stand for? So you come way away from what we were just discussing, and that's the beauty of the minimalism of the object, celebrating the object.
It is what it is, yeah.
We're very fortunate that we can do that, and we can design our own frames and tubes, and only we have that access to that, because that tooling is ours.
Yeah, so like starting from absolute scratch, which is so nice. It's funny, when I started the FORMcard project, I was looking at different kind of injection molding opportunity, like possibilities and opportunities, and I came across these sites that sell off old tooling.
Oh, cool.
And that's really amazing. So like a Chinese factory selling off thousands and thousands of molds of things that are made all over the world, and it's quite like there's a whole project there where you buy up. This is like a teapot for Egypt. This is a shoe for wherever, and it's like looking into the world inside this factory, and they've just got like a picture of what, like a blank molded form, and you try and guess where that's. Like it's a Turkish something. This one is like a Filipino something. And they're all flooding out of this factory.
Wow. One of our suppliers in Taiwan, they have the other side of the businesses. They're an injection molding company, and they do like they do lots of the fascias for TVs, like not the fascia, but the frame that goes around the front, like the bezel. And they'll do stuff for like PCs or refrigerators, like the little plastic parts. And their tool room, it's whoever does like kind of like experiences should take note of this, because when you go into that room, the sheer amount of steel, it sucks the heat out of you. It's like as if your soul's
cold, man.
Yeah, it's really weird, because outside is like really like hot. It's in the summertime, it can be like 35 to 40 degrees.
Fascinating.
But you go inside this warehouse and there's just such it sucks the heat out of you. It's really weird.
How interesting.
It's like your soul's being pulled out of you.
Yeah.
It is. It's just the whatever it is coming off your body radiating. I guess we're not used to it coming off in such a fashion, but it just gets pulled off you.
Deathfully, cool. Sort of withering in front of these tools.
So interesting world of secondhand tooling.
Yeah.
But it's weird, the commercial world. I keep saying the same point, but it's weird how it makes you make a compromise as the purist designer of what I love doing. Like that's why I love your work, because I feel quite jealous that you're able to exercise that complete autonomous freedom of making a one-off. What is it you're doing? A side table? Did you say before?
No, it's a giant console.
A giant console for one client, making one-off.
Yeah, that's quite nice.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's a really nice position to be in, and it's also like if you think about when we studied, it was like the kind of design gallery world that was just kind of starting out. Prior to that, you worked for a furniture company.
Yep.
And it was very kind of like quite a limited range of things that you could do. And you see now, like you can work for that furniture company, you can work for a gallery, you can self-produce, you can self-promote. There's so many different ways that you can manifest what's going on in your head, which is, I think it's amazing. I think it's an amazing time.
It's a totally different time than
totally
we
different. Yeah, you don't go and work for a company. That's quite a rare thing to do now.
Or the celebrity designer. I mean, where have they gone? They've kind of like disappeared. I'm a little bit out of the world of that world.
It's best to stay out of that world.
But do they still exist? Are they still big names?
Celebrities, I'm trying to think, actually. I'm very out of touch with what's going on in the design world, to be honest.
I mean, when we were studying at the Royal College, it was the Philippe Starks, it was the Ron Arad.
There was all that, yeah. It's funny, like
Martin Houston.
Yeah, I do a project with my students, which is sneaky project. I get them on one day to research designers all around the world and do a 5-minute presentation on those designers. It's a great way to figure out what's going on in the world.
Your dose of your live feed.
Do you know, that was a good thing. I'm gonna claim a victory on this one. So during lockdown, we went into lockdown and I got them to research London-based designers, research them, do the presentation, and then the favourite one that everybody liked, we'd ask them to come and give a talk at the college, which was really, really nice. So Barnaby Barford came to talk to us, a few different people. But then during lockdown, we were all on Zoom, and I did the same thing, but I got them to research designers all around the world.
Right.
And then I asked some of those designers to come and talk to us over Zoom, and they all said yes, and they all did it for free, and we met like really, really cool people, like from all around the world, which is really, really nice. That was one of the sort of positives about Zoom. It was like, oh yeah, we can like connect with all of those different people, and that led in. So I did this project in the London Design Festival, and this kind of led into that, where I got asked to do an exhibition about it was about recycling, ostensibly about recycling for King's Coal Drops Yard in King's Cross, and I decided to create something that was like a hybrid online. It was a response to the Zoom world and the pandemic Zoom world, and a very physical making place. So I created like a workshop space where we had a CNC cardboard cutting machine, and then different designers from all around the world, some of the people that we'd spoken to, and then some of my favourite designers around the world. I got them to send in plans, and then the public could come, we'd cut the pieces, the components, and then the public would make the objects in the workshop.
Oh, cool.
And it was it's probably FORMcard used to be my favourite project that I've ever done, but I think this one was because it was all about people being able to make something of value. Yeah. And it was inspiring them with someone else's design, but they were actually making it. And it was really, really some amazing objects.
It's like human rapid prototyping.
Yeah. And you say it like that, but it's just people making stuff out of rubbish. Yeah. And people would come to the show, and the thing we kept on hearing was, and how much is it? Like, nothing. It's free. You're going to make it. Like, oh, but then I can take it away. You're like, yes, you made it. And I've still got most of the objects. But it's such a great experience. And it was
you're designing a system there. You're designing that's interesting. That is a process.
Yeah, and it was a lovely balance between. It was this centralized making hub and receiving things from around the world, which then people came and then took away, manifesting those digital plans. Everything came in digital form, and then a machine turned that data into something that people could then really build into a three-dimensional object and walk away with. It was such a great experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe on the kind of I often get really amused when people first discover rapid prototyping, and you're like. Yeah, it's been around for a while.
My dad's expression when he first saw rapid 3D printing, rapid prototyping as we used to call it, I remember him looking at me and saying, "This is the future."
Yeah, right.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Everyone's got one now.
It's funny, isn't it? That little line in there, the connecting the dots of it's at home and it can print anything is the magic, isn't it? That's what makes your dad and everyone else kind of go or like when I first got introduced to it.
It's incredible.
It is magical.
It seems strange that it didn't exist before.
Yeah,
because it's so simple.
Yeah,
it's X, Y, and Z.
I remember so I'm talking of 1999, I think it was.
Whoa.
Or 1998. No, 1999. I was in my first year at Middlesex University on the product design course there, and they just got one of the very first FDM machines.
Wow.
So that was where...
It's like the wire.
Yeah, so it would be an extrusion and very small footprint on the machine, and you put the CAD model in there, and that was... Do you ever remember a CAD program called Ideas?
No.
So that was like... I'm sure that's pre-SolidWorks. And I think 3D Studio Max was similar at the time, but Ideas was like the parametric modeling equivalent of 3D modeling at Max, and we used that software. And I remember the university
something tiny, probably.
Yeah, and I printed that was my first like proper commercial customer. So I was in my first year at university, and I stayed in the summer in London. I didn't go home. I stayed there, and the university every now and again would get like corporate clients who would want something developing, and so they would say, students, do you want to have a go? And basically no one wanted to do it, and I was like, yeah, I'll do it, sounds cool.
Wow.
And it was the company was they were like they did like all sorts of signage for supermarkets. So like when you're going down the aisle and you see like a sign hanging, and the guy that ran the company was like, yeah, we've always got this problem with artificial ceilings, like our ceiling here, where you have like suspended, and it's very hard to connect to. In an ideal world, could you design something that I can just go click? And I was like, yes, of course I can. And so I designed this
to put up the sign.
Yeah, to put the sign up.
Okay, right.
And I kind of ended up coming up with this kind of like tape measure style system, so the wires would come out on both sides, and it had this little clip. But as you push it up, it will go clip onto the ceiling. Nice. And we rapid prototyped the whole thing. And I remember being sat in the studio.
It's
like,
the future.
This was like so long ago, like 20 odd years ago, 22 years ago. Oh my goodness. And it was really hot outside, and there was no technicians, and this machine was like not working properly, and I was having a proper meltdown. But we're talking back in the day where there was no like fine resolution, like it was literally like having
like an icing gun.
It was like probably it's probably like half the thickness of like a spaghetti.
Yeah.
And I remember going to Halfords and getting a load of P38 filler.
Could have just made this by hand.
Yeah. In the time I could have machined it all.
There's amazing animation online of early facial expressions.
Right.
It's an animation. It's from 1971.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen
cartoon
that?
expressions.
It's like a human head.
Right.
I mean, it's not meant to be cartoon-like, but it's like super early animation. It's 1971, and it's pretty good.
Right.
It's like, ooh.
Oh, okay. Like, okay,
but it's in 3D, and the head is kind of like
okay.
slowly kind of moving, so you know it is 3D.
Okay.
But it was like 1971.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at all the early stuff that Pixar did, and all the
it's really basic.
Good,
really raw.
There's a really good like the classic, the lamp, right?
Yeah.
Jumping and nodding. Like they built a lot of the. They built the software to do a lot of that.
Right.
They ended up pioneering it all and building a lot. I think Lucas Films, I think they bought into that and sponsored a lot of that.
Yeah.
Adam's nodding his head behind the camera. He's a big film man. So I'm right. Okay.
Do you know Neil Scanlon?
Yes.
It does all the Star Wars special effects.
Yes.
So I used to work next door to them, and they were just like a little props company.
Oh wow.
And it's like I just watched Star Wars the other day. Jesus, it's Neil Scanlon Studios.
Didn't they go and just buy like loads of hair dryers and stuff and like build all the guns from everything? Everything was like ready made.
Sure, probably, yeah.
And then they just sprayed them all black.
Oh, are you talking about the early Star Wars?
The early Star Wars,
sure.
yeah.
No, the current ones are all Neil Scanlon. It was amazing. They used to have like really good animatronics, and in the car park in this place I used to work at, they would have like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one day are all out in the car park, like fully animated, like puppetry, incredible animatronics.
I didn't mention before, but I was going to mention it when we were talking about the Metaverse. But a lot of people don't know, but we built a jet powered scooter.
Wow.
Yeah, with 2 EDF motors on the back, so ducted electric fans because a proper petroleum jet motor. Camilla wasn't happy with me messing around with that kind of stuff, so I was like, don't worry, we'll do it electric, it's a bit safer.
Kaboom.
But we got approached by Warner Brothers Studios, and this is when they were filming Ready Player One.
Oh, it's such a good film.
Yeah,
like
and
that.
we were supposed to be in 3 scenes in Ready Player One with our jet scooter.
That's so cool.
So I got to go down to the studios, and they wanted they wanted some of the army green air scooters, so similar to the one that you've got.
Yeah.
And their team, they selected them, and I was like, yeah, I'll bring them, but I've also got a jet scooter. Would you like that? And they were like, yes.
Amazing.
And I got down, and it was such a cool day. We went into the studio just outside London.
Yeah.
And it's enormous, that site. Yeah. Enormous. They had like full set builds there. And if you remember the film, the bad guy, Sorrento, in his office, that entire scene was filmed in London, and it's all real. It's not CGI.
Yeah.
And I went onto that set.
It's amazing.
The stuff that they build is amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. Have you seen that film? You're a film guy. Have you seen Room 416, the Kubrick film?
One, yeah.
I've
not
that.
seen that.
It's all about The Shining, but it's the fan interpretations of what's going on, and it's really interesting.
Quite far-reaching, though. It's fun, isn't it?
It's fun, but there's some good bits. It's like spooky bits. Funny enough, my son watched Ready Player One.
Okay.
And I pre-screened it, and there's like the whole section of The Shining in there, you know. So I was like, you can't watch that bit. This is when he was 8, so he immediately afterwards on YouTube found the missing scene, which was and he watched that bit. I was like, okay. Then he sneakily behind our back watched the whole of The Shining.
Oh, no way.
In small sections, because the whole film it's like 100 sections broken. No. My 8-year-old watched The Shining.
that terrifies me really now. Bad. Still, that
it's
film.
Such a good film. Is such a good for my son to have watched such a good film at an early age, I think, and he's okay with it.
He's okay with it.
But he's all right. I think if you watch it in small bits, it's not as terrifying.
Especially if it's like not a Friday night in a dark room, and you've had a hard week at work.
Yeah, I think sort of like find the clip and then hitting play sort of breaks that drama, the intensity of the Kubrick.
Right,
all filmed in the UK. You know that.
Wow, was it?
I didn't know that. He was scared of flying, so he never left the UK.
All of it, you know, Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah,
that's London Gasworks, isn't it? All of it.
It's all around South London. Yeah.
Wow, and he did Space Odyssey as well, right?
Yeah,
so good. That was pre-Fear. That was when he lived in.
Okay,
that's my 2 favourite films.
I love Space Odyssey.
It's phenomenal.
There's something so magic about everything that they do, and so limited in terms of what they had then.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, listen, Peter, it's been a fascinating conversation. I can't thank you enough for coming up from London, taking the time.
It's great to see you.
I knew it would be a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. Keep up the good work, what you're doing. We'll put all your links below.
Sure. Get
some FORMcard. You need them in your wallet to fix your life. Thanks again, man. Awesome.
No problem. Thanks. Cheers, Jason.